What's up, everybody? This morning, I was about to edit this video talking about this Nintendo simp that had some really ridiculous things to say about Elden Ring, but then I realized that there was some actual news regarding the DLC. It looks like these days I'm slipping, I'm really late to the party, but better late than never. So today we'll talk about the news. I won't cover everything because there's a lot of other channels that have covered it already, but I just want to talk about my favorite parts of the article because Miyazaki did an interview, and even though it is translated from Chinese, we can get a lot of information out of it. And I just want to talk about the parts that make me the most excited and happy with the decisions that they're making. So let's get started. So it reads, Dark Souls has previously launched 2 or even 3 DLC contents. This time, Elden Ring has concentrated all the contents into one DLC. Is it for similar considerations? And the answer is Elden Ring emphasizes the exploration and adventure of the big world. In order to provide such an experience, a vast and huge scene is inevitably needed. Therefore, instead of splitting it into several parts, it is better to simply make one big. If they were sold separately, the freedom of exploration and sense of adventure would be reduced. Now, I'll tell you why, in my opinion, that is amazing news. First of all, the most obvious is we want a chunky DLC because we've been waiting for over 2 years. It is the only DLC. Miyazaki also confirmed it. So we want it to be substantial so it matches the grandiose scale of the first game. So that is fantastic news. But I'm also very happy that From Software is moving on from this project, because they announced Elden Ring at E3 in 2019, and then it released in 2022, and we're finally getting the conclusion of the story, the one and only DLC, in 2024. So between the time of the announcement and the conclusion of the story, that's 5 years, and that's not even counting the time they were working on Elden Ring before they announced it. Granted, we did get Armored Core in between, so it's not like they have been slacking, but I'm looking forward to From Software getting back to their older schedule. I'm sure you guys remember that they pumped out Dark Souls 2, Bloodborne, and Dark Souls 3 all together in about 3 years, which is insane. And personally, I'm just speaking personally, I prefer the smaller scope games. My favorite From Software game has been and will always be Sekiro and Bloodborne. Unless they come out with something even better, that would be amazing. But yeah, I'm really hyped for the DLC, but also looking forward to see what's next for them. Let's move on to the next question. It reads, will the ending chosen by the player in the main story have a different impact on the narrative of the DLC? Does the DLC have multiple endings? Then Miyazaki says the DLC is an independent existence, so the player's choice in this will not affect the DLC story. As for the ending, there's actually no so-called end or end, of course. The DLC will not have as many endings as the main body, but players will still have to face some choices during the game. So what's interesting about this is that Miyazaki is continuing with the open world and freedom that Elden Ring brought in the base game, and that you might be able to tackle challenges in different orders. And I think that adds a lot to replayability, because once I play a new game in Elden Ring, I try to do things a little bit different, and I'm sure a lot of you guys do the same. Maybe instead of doing the usual path, you might want to start with Radon first instead of going with Renala. Or you might want to skip Radon altogether and then do Renala and Rykard. So you have multiple options, and it looks like that's going to continue in the DLC, which once again is going to help with replayability. The next question is, how long is the DLC game duration? Do you recommend that players give priority to completing the main story or experiencing the DLC? And he says, I feel that my answer to the question of duration is not appropriate. Before the release of Elden Ring, I revealed in an interview that it would take about 30 hours to complete the game, but after it was released, everyone said that I was lying. In fact, not enough at all. As developers, we will definitely continue to experience the game. We are too skilled, so the duration has no reference value. As for the order of play, everyone can play according to their preferences. There is no strict order. If anything, we recommend starting to experience the DLC after playing the second half of this chapter and then returning to this chapter to complete the game. Before, if you clear this chapter first, you will go directly to the second chapter and there is no way to directly connect to the DLC. So here he's talking about New Game Plus. He's saying you should definitely beat the DLC before you start New Game Plus, or else it's going to complicate things. Once again, there's a lot that is lost to the translations. But what's really interesting here is that he realized that his 30 hours to complete the main game was a little bit off the mark. Now, I don't know about you guys, but the first time I played Elden Ring, I believe it was around 80 to 100 hours. At least because I wanted to explore a lot. I didn't want to rush towards the end. So maybe it would be 30 hours if you're a pro player like Let Me Solo Her and you can completely demolish Melania in the first try. But for the average player, especially depending on if you are using summons, if you're using friends or spirit ashes, it's going to vary quite a bit. And if you're not an expert at Souls-likes, it could be upwards of 100 hours for sure. So the fact that he's avoiding to give a direct answer, his answer is kind of like a non-answer, it leads me to believe that it's going to take quite some time. He did say that there are going to be a lot of secrets. You might not all find it in your first playthrough. So it's safe to assume we're looking at a substantial amount of playtime over here. Moving on to the last question, and this is actually my favorite question out of the bunch. He says, since the launch of Demon's Souls, many Souls-based games not produced by From Software have been released on the market. I would like to ask Mr. Miyazaki, has he tried similar works from other manufacturers? As a pioneer of this genre, what do you think of the proliferation of Souls games today? And he said, we have not actually defined the so-called Soul system type. I often play this type of game myself, of course, as a player. I'm very happy to be able to play so many games of this type. There's a lot of commendable contents in them, and I can learn a lot as a creator. This is a great opportunity. In fact, when we first developed Demon's Souls, we followed the trend of the times and developed something that met user expectations. We and other developers jointly explored and studied from each other, and everyone's purpose was the same: give players a better gaming experience. What I really like about that answer, besides the fact that he's extremely humble considering that From Software is and will always be the GOAT of Souls-like since they made the genre and the quality is always miles above the competition, he still plays other Souls-likes and recognizes that they have amazing ideas. I mean, some are a total mockery of the genre and are completely pointless, such as Dolmen, which is just a ripoff basically. But some other Souls-likes have really, really good ideas that even if From Software were to implement them, it would make the game pretty fun. I'll give you a couple features from Souls-likes that I really like and I would love to see in a From Software game. For example, in Lies of P, when you're on your last potion, if you hit enough enemies, it's going to eventually replenish one flask. That's it. But at least it gives you a fighting chance to come back, and even though you're on your last potion, you have no more healing. If you play good enough, you're able to stay in the fight. So I really enjoyed that feature. Also, from the first Lords of the Fallen, there was a feature where the more enemy you kill without resetting, without going to the bonfire, the more souls you would get per kill. So there was a multiplier and it was visible. You could see exactly how much more money you were getting per kill because you haven't rested at a bonfire. So I think that was rewarding some more aggressive plays, running on low healing, because you would get more rewards out of it. So I really enjoyed that system. Also, I do like the healing system in the Surge. I believe it was the Surge 2 that was like that, but in the Surge 2, your healing is directly related to your energy, and you get more energy as you hit people. So as long as you don't take too much damage and you just keep getting hits, you can go on forever. You can always get more flasks because you're always getting more energy. So a system where your entire healing system is related to how much you hit the enemies and can go on forever is extremely interesting, and I really thought they implemented it very well in the Surge 2. Also worth mentioning, which is very unique, even though I really didn't like Mortal Shell, it's not my favorite Souls-like, the shell mechanic where you harden is extremely genius. So that could be interesting in a From Software game as well. Of course, From Software, they're pioneers, so they're going to come up with their new, unique, and intricate mechanics. But from time to time, it looks like the competition is coming up with pretty good ideas too. So it's great that they can all learn from each other. Now that's pretty much all I had to say about this new piece of news. Like I said, I'm going to be covering that Nintendo fanboy in the next couple days. That's going to be a really good laugh. But it was a nice breath of fresh air to get some actual news from Software. Now, thanks so much for watching. I'm sure we're going to see some new gameplay in the next month or so, probably around Summer Game Fest. So yeah, all aboard the hype train. Thanks a lot for watching, and I'll see you guys on the next one.